Hey, what's up? Welcome back to the PK podcast, where that PK stands for Preacher's Kid, Not Perfect Kid. Good thing, too, because I'm here with my co-host, one of the most imperfect people that I know, Eli Blevins. Welcome back to the show. We're stepping into season 3. Can you believe that, Eli? It's been 3 years we've been doing this now.
3 years. It's been awesome. Since then, we've both had babies, and you've moved. We've had lots going on, so it's been great.
The last time that we were broadcasting together, I was coming to you from San Antonio, and I'm just going to leave any derogatory comments I might have where they are. I am going to let you know that Orlando is absolutely the greatest, and we're stoked to be here. And Eli, when are you moving? Because the Regal Eagle is calling your name.
I will probably not move from Wilmington ever, but if I do ever make it to Disney World, we'll go back to Disney World, and I will visit the only American restaurant in Epcot, because that's the only place in Epcot I want to eat is American food.
Here we are traveling around the world, missions trip to Paris, to Morocco, all these different places. And Eli's like, you know what's calling my name? Barbecue from the Regal Eagle. And I'm like, that was worth the price of admission. Mediocre barbecue. But I guess when you come from Wilmington, whatever.
We get what we get. We get what we get.
Well, we've got an incredible episode planned for you today. And man, our guest is incredible. I'm going to let Eli introduce him, but I'm just stoked that we have a Texan, a Cowboys fan, and an educator, a soon-to-be honorary doctorate holder. This guy is amazing. Eli, who's joining us on the PK podcast today?
Yes, we got my friend Connor Champion from Austin, Texas, with us, and I got to meet him about September of last year. Me and my wife were in Texas, and I met him, went to his church, his parents' church in Austin, Texas, and it was awesome. And we also both went to the same university at Southeastern University. I was there a little bit before him, and but we both have that title of alumni from Southeastern University, and life is good. So, Connor, welcome to the show, and do you mind just giving us a little bit of a bird's eye view from yourself? Introduce yourself, kind of tell a bit about your story.
Yeah, thanks for having me. My story is I was in college football, so 2015, graduated high school, went straight into coaching. Was coaching at Mississippi State with Dak Prescott, which I know that we'll talk about, big Cowboys fans here.
Oh, yeah.
Was at the University of Houston and then Arizona State, and then coaching at a school in Louisiana, and then Samford, and then COVID hits, and then go to Southeastern, and that's where I finished school. That's where I coached. That's where I met my wife. Had a great church there at Gray City. Moved to Texas for a coaching job, and about a year ago, we just felt like ministry was it, and I kind of always tried to avoid that, being a PK. But here I am, and now I'm seeing an incredible thing. We're building a school, and so I get to lead that, and it's been really exciting. It's been a great year.
Now,
that's awesome. Coaching
football as a Christian, coming from, the legalistic Baptist world, I've got questions.
Yeah.
Sometimes games happen on the Sabbath, and is that even can you serve the Lord and actually coach football? And is the pressure even higher to be out of church early for Sunday afternoon or Sunday night games? I mean, inquiring minds who skipped last Sunday's service want to know, how do we approach sports as a believer?
Is it post coaching or currently?
I guess both.
Okay, so whenever I was in coaching, I had to watch online, so that I was always in the office, but now you just kind of watch on your phone during service. So thankfully, I don't preach every weekend, so I'll attend the 9, take notes faithfully, and then during the 11, I typically have my phone set up, kind of the side.
Oh, they throw in he takes notes faithfully. He's engaged.
You have to do it for the first service, and then the second service, you're good to do whatever you need.
You got the phone down here, just like, yes, that's good. You're like,
yes, that's really good.
Well, people who take notes are 90% closer to God than people who don't.
Yeah. Yes.
I believe that that's in the Message translation, and I believe
Passion.
it 100%.
Passion translation.
Passion translation. That's the one.
Yeah.
That's the only
Come
thing
on,
John reads from is the Passion Translation.
I'm a Passion Translation onlyist. We're building all of our doctrine based off of those interpretations, and I gotta say, it's given me a lot of freedom that I didn't previously have.
That's amazing. Well, so Connor, so you mentioned that you're starting a school. Tell us a little bit about that and how that what's kind of the genesis of that?
Yeah, so really the genesis is before we even planted a church. My parents, Pastors Joe and Lori, they always knew that we would have a school that was always in their heart. And so fast forward to 2000, we plant in Austin. And then 2002, he's praying, Lord, I know that we will have a school based on the land that you give us. And so he said on stage on a Sunday, I believe for 100 acres on I-35, which is the biggest highway in the country. Everybody drives on 35 here in Austin. And so that was kind of a crazy thing to say. We only had a few hundred people. And turns out, long story short, there's a guy that had prayed for a church and a school to be on that property starting in 1942. And whenever we knocked on the door on a random house that wasn't for sale, they said 2 nights ago, we prayed for the right church to come, and this is the right church. And so we've kind of held on to this vision for a long time. It wasn't going to happen until 2025. And then this year, we just were like, you know what? I think that this is the right time to do it. And we built a team from there. And really, we had this idea of, let's have a business school and let's have a ministry school. And the more that we kind of talked about it, really the outcome of the student should look the same. We should have students that are successful in anything that they choose to go into, but they should be theologically sound and be able to articulate their faith in the industry. And so now, just really, if the people that we have come onto the staff with the church that don't typically make it, that are young or have a hard time, it's not really a hard issue. It's usually just how to operate within a system. And so I think having a training ground that trains students for the ministry in that way, but also being able to train business students to go out into any field and be successful. So I know that was kind of my story in coaching. I was able to do coaching, but I know that I'm called to ministry now. And I felt like I could have been successful in either one of those things. But that's kind of the heart of the school. And really at the root of it, we're a business school. And we just haven't heard of anything like it where we're training business as ministry for students. There's a lot of ministry schools that are training pastors. And so we're really excited about the concept. We live in what they call the Silicon Hills now in Austin. So we have some of the greatest tech leaders in the world are here. So it's exciting.
That's incredible. I know for both John and I, we both have extensively talked about how, just because we both also have some business background as well. And I come from a family of entrepreneurs, and just how the two should coexist. And sometimes often they don't. Those two worlds kind of are like, you're either this or you're that, or you're neither of those two, and you're just kind of doing your own thing. And the importance of kind of marrying those two, and that we should have people that are working in, high level industries that also are full of faith and have, that are sound biblically. And that's how you change the world. I mean, it's great that we're doing ministry, but when you have someone in the marketplace that's influential and that has means and all that kind of stuff, that is able to make a difference for the kingdom from within there, I think that's where a lot of change happens. Yeah. And so for our listeners who are in middle school or high school and their kids that are listening to this right now, and you're kind of trying to figure out what you want to do with your life, look at what they're doing in Austin right now and what Connor's doing, and maybe have a peek into that. And maybe that's something for you where you're kind of like, I want to do this or I want to do this, but where can there be a beautiful marriage of the two?
Yeah.
Connor, I'd love to even hear a little bit more about this from a from a PK's perspective or to the PK, because just about every one of us could testify that one of the main issues in the health of the church and the health of the pastor's family has been a lack of understanding of how to run the business side of things. It's like a lot of guys are incredible preachers, but when it comes to handling money or speaking to business leaders or things along those administrative lines, it's just not something that's being taught in most schools. And you're approaching that head on. You're training guys in the age of co-vocational ministry.
Yeah.
You're training guys where there's this need. But also, I saw on Nathan Finocchio's page, he's like, you get a business degree with more theology than most Bible colleges. Like, give us a glimpse into the behind the scenes of these types of conversations. And as a PK, I'm going, yeah, I think I might want to be in ministry, but I want to, maybe not starve like my parents did. So what am I going to get when I come to Austin Christian? Why should I go there?
Yeah, so I think the other component with most Bible schools is the theological richness. And I know some really great ones, but the depth of theology isn't very deep, and it's very much like, hey, I'm going to go to Chair Stacking Academy, and we're going to say that this is training somebody for ministry, but really, especially for somebody that's a PK that's grown up in that environment, they really don't. I didn't need that. I've gone door to door since I was 4 years old, handing out flyers. So I think for us, it was like, we're hungry for the word. I think the next generation's really hungry for the word and a deeper understanding. And so for us, it was, let's have a degree that has both components. It is a business degree, so that way, if they wanted not go into ministry, or if they just want to go into business and again be successful, they can do that. Because how many ministry degrees do you know that end up never using that ministry degree in full-time ministry? So we want them to be able to get jobs. But yeah, I think the theological component's huge. And so really that was the foundation of the school. Is whenever I took the opportunity, the first call was Nathan Finocchio, and it was, how do we partner? Because I think that Theos is doing a better job than anybody on training the next generation theologically and really creating a desire for that. And so he was like, all right, let's do it. And it was a great foundation for the school. And because we don't want to just be a business school that's a secular school either. Really the heart of the Ivy League schools was they were all rooted out of the local church, and they were all to create ministers. And so obviously they've strayed away from that, but we think that we can recenter Christian education in that sense.
What are some effective ways that you've seen marketplace evangelism take place? Because I've been reading recently like some predictions on, where's the next Great Awakening come from? And, lots of people have different ideas, but the one that's making the most sense to me is that it's going to be a marketplace business leader type revival. Like, how do you use the ministry stuff in a business context?
Yeah, I think first of all, you have to be really good at your job. I think that oftentimes we just think that we're going to go talk to some people and say, hey, come to church with me. But really you're not a witness in everything that you do. And really we want to make sure first and foremost they add value, because I think it was John Maxwell does the Paul's 5 rules of evangelism. And the first one is you have to add value to people. And so if a business owner hires you, you better be dang good. And, that will be the key to their heart. And they'll say, man, I love this guy. Where can I find more of you? And hopefully Austin Christian is a resource for more hires. But I think as far as revival, I've heard Billy Graham talks about the next Great Awakening will happen in the business sector. I agree with that. I think that people are going to be hungry, and it's not necessarily going to come from really a skewed view that people have of the church. it's really going to come from people being a great neighbor, being a great steward of the things that they have, and being a great example. And somebody saying, "What's different about you?" That's what it's going to be.
That's amazing. And I'm sure you're going to be filling with tons of woke ideology in there and making sure all of that stuff is it's just like,
very woke. If you want to be woke, come to Austin Christian.
Yeah, I think that's exactly where God wants me to go, the woke school. No, please, that's the last thing on earth any of us need. But so this is going to be part of your church, though, right? Is it going to be stemmed from Celebration Church?
Yeah, it is. So it's rooted out of Celebration. Again, we have 110 acres on I-35, so the rest of the property is going to be used to build out full-time housing. We have a huge building project for the rest of the campus that we're working on right now. We want to have 1,500 to 2,000 students. But again, it has to be rooted out of the local church. So really, even in our bylaws, they're the sole owner. So if there's ever anything that is outside of the church's ideology, say in 50 to 100 years, they can vote on that. So it's great. We called it Austin Christian University, though, because really we don't want it to just feel like a church internship. It really is a great resource for other churches, even in Austin. So if there's a great church down the road, I don't want that kid to say, well, my parents pastor here in Austin, I would love to go to that church, but I have to be a part of everything that they do. We want to make sure that they're in a great church, but we do have church partnerships here that allow students to go back to their church home on the weekends. And we just believe in our product so much that we think that really the world needs Austin Christian. And we're not going to say, well, you go to First Baptist, so you can't come here.
That's good. So you talked about how you went to the School of Chair Stacking University for your
Chair
whole life.
Stacking Academy. He has a degree from there.
Yes, I think we all have I was the pipe and drape pastor is kind of what I've called myself. And there's some hilarious things that we do as kids that our parents ask us to do. Yeah. And I was door knocking before I even knew what I was doing, getting people to church. John's schedule growing up. What was your schedule again? How many days were you doing church stuff, John? You were like 6 years old every day.
On the clock doing church-related activities 6 days a week. It was crazy. But see, Saturday was 7 a.m. men's prayer and then afternoon door-to-door visitation. So Connor, I've got to know, what is the spiel that you give when the door is answered? Do you remember it?
The door is answered. What do you mean by that?
You're out doing door knocking for the church. You've got your church flyer or whatever. And everybody knows that you take the kid because people will answer the door thinking it's like a Boy Scout or something. Yeah. But you knocked on it. They opened the door. You got the flyer. What are you telling them?
We're planning a church and we have no money and I need to eat. And so I need you to come to Celebration Church. So it's been a while.
Like it.
That's amazing.
But that was along the lines back in the day.
Did it work?
I think it worked. I mean, we have a great church now. But whenever we moved here, we didn't have ARC whenever we launched Celebration. So we launched the church out of our house 30 days after we moved to Austin without having any family, any friends. That was literally what we did. We just went door to door and we started knocking. So my older brother, who is now working in Washington, D.C., he was like, we came here for this? He's like, this isn't even a real church. He was 9. So he that's why he's in D.C. They need more honest people.
Straight up. That's amazing.
So true.
Well, Eli, I got to take notes on that because our door knocking spiel was way more offensive than that, and I can testify it did not work. It was like, hey, I'm from Faith Baptist Church. Do you know if you died today, would you spend eternity in heaven or would you split hell wide open? And typically the door was not wide open after you made it to that point. It was like we knocked on 1,000 doors and saw 2,700 people saved, but they never did show up. So
Yeah.
I think I'm going to take my daughter out with the, hey, I need to eat spiel, and it's going to work now in Jesus' name.
Yes.
Did you ever have like any like fun perks of being a pastor's kid though? Like there was always like some fun things that we did that were like, oh, this is like, yeah, there's some corny things we did, but there's also some just meeting people, doing things like that you would never get to meet otherwise, and places you got to go, or some things that were like perks for you guys.
Yeah, I loved my life as a pastor's kid. I think it was really a great experience. I'm 5th generation PK, so come from a lineage of it. My dad's family's like all heathens, football coaches, lots of military. My mom's side's all incredible pastors, and but I think growing up in it, we had a healthy dose of reality, just from my dad's side of the family, where they would be like, that's a little weird that y'all are doing that. And so I think that was good for us, that we weren't totally in a bubble. But my mom's side of the family, again, rich lineage. I think the perks, we went to Hillsong Conference several times in Sydney. That was life-changing experiences. I think getting around people like a John Maxwell, where a leader sitting in the church, or you're learning from this type of person, has always been great. I think overall it's just the people, and I've heard a few different people on this podcast talk about the people that they meet along the journey, and I think that we've just been extremely blessed, and all of it really is because we've been PKs. There's definitely a spotlight that comes with it, but that is part of leadership, and we knew early on that there's pros and cons to being a leader, but obviously, you really have control of your future, and really the future of those around you in that area.
Talk to the preacher's kid who is kind of feeling called to work with their parents' ministry, but is nervous about working with their parents in ministry.
Yeah.
Because we need some advice on how to do that well.
Yeah. So whenever I was leaving coaching, I was on a great trajectory and really didn't feel like it was time for me to go, but I just felt the whisper of God say, hey, this is what we should be doing. And I thought it was kind of a crazy statement. Long story short, my parents had been praying about it. They felt like I was the right person for this specific role that was open. And my wife had felt it, but all of them had talked about it, but none of them had informed me that it was the right thing to do. So I just once we talked about it, I told my dad, I said, hey, I just really don't want to be the PK that just goes back and works for his dad. And just because I just see a ton of people that are doing that, and I just selfishly, before doing this, wondered, could they do anything else? And so I think all of those thoughts are reasonable thoughts. But ultimately, what he said to me was, Connor, if you're called to this, you need to be here. It doesn't matter what you want. It doesn't matter what you think. If you're called to it, then you need to be in that spot. And ultimately, it's what God says about your life. So if I'm in the will of God, then everything will be seamless. And I've felt like we've had a seamless marriage over the last year. I felt like I've been in a seamless role, and everything has seemed to click. And I've had the time of my life. It's truly been the best job I've ever had, and it's similar to coaching. So the things that I loved about it have translated.
What are those things? I've never been a coach. I know that Eli is going to be the epitome of the soccer dad. He's going to be coaching all of Haven sports at some point. I won't, because I want to see my team win. So what are the things that translate, and in that, leaving coaching for ministry? I know that was the Lord's thing for you, but was that nerve-wracking? Was that exciting? What What was that experience like?
Yeah, I think it was a little bit of both. I think it's nerve-wracking. I think anytime that so I took I mean, we had two people on our team with our school at the time, and it was just an evening program, and then both of them had kids right whenever I came on. So at one point it was just me hanging out, and I was the director of our school, and so it was a little weird. You know, you kind of just are riding solo most of the time, but now we've been able to build out a team, and so I think what's translated is whenever you're building a school, it's all recruiting, it's team building, putting in processes, and really it should look no different than running, you know, Alabama football. It's just a smaller scale. And so at least in my role, so it's team building, it's setting a vision, having a cultural standard, speaking the same language. And if you don't recruit well, then you're not going to have anything. So my biggest mentors are Nick Saban, Bill Walsh, who coached for the 49ers back in the 80s. Like those are the people that I really have gleaned to help build the organization. So
That's awesome. Yeah, those are names that I know, but John probably has no idea who those names are.
I know who Nick Saban is. I got that one down.
He's got one down. There you go.
And enough PK in me that when you're like, it's like coaching Alabama football, I was like, okay, on a very surface level, it's like Roll Tide, the crimson stained blood of Jesus, right? It's exactly the same.
Yeah, a lot of T-shirt Alabama fans. I'm not an Alabama fan. I'm more of an LSU guy, but just Saban is he's the GOAT.
Yeah, well, I can't believe you actually said that as an LSU fan. That really must mean something then to you. So I've been to your church before. You've got an incredible church, one of the biggest churches in Texas. Like you're in, it's bigger than I can even fathom for a church. And so for you though, what was it like kind of growing up in that environment where your parents were on this pedestal and you're kind of growing up and you're looking up to them and just what was it like kind of living in that glass house of influence, of notoriety and all that kind of stuff? Kind of explain to us a little bit deeper into kind of that what it was like, because I love that kind of like how you said like you're a big fan of being a PK and raising it was a fantastic experience, and I fully can relate to that as well. But maybe kind of explain a little bit about what it was like kind of living in that kind of fishbowl life where everyone was just kind of watching you and what you guys were doing.
Yeah, I think there's a subconscious expectation that you may not even know that you're carrying. And so I think being aware of that, but I also think that you need to think that you are in a leadership role. I mean, if you're a PK, you are called to lead and you were born into that. And you can say that's unfair, but there's a lot of other things that are worse. And so I think you just have to be aggressive with it. It's, hey, this is the life that I was given, and God has me here for a reason. And so for us, it definitely is a glass house. I think there's times where it can be frustrating is whenever you're running around Austin and I was in high school at the time and my friends are screaming at people and just being funny, like doing stupid stuff. And my constant thought is, that person probably goes to my church, and I'm always that guy. Like my friends would always joke like, oh, I'm sure it goes to your church. I'm like, yeah, it probably does, and obviously probably not, but sometimes they would. And so I think that can be hard. There's times that you just feel like you're always smiling and you're always supposed to be really a sense of joy for people whenever they want to come talk to you at church, even if it's not a time in your life that it can be joyful. But I think that now more than ever, we just need to be aggressive with the roles that we have and really the lives that we've been given to be a light to other people. I think there's a lot more pros and cons.
Absolutely.
One of our very first episodes was with a PK named Ben Corson, and he shared this quote with us that his dad gave him when he was a kid. He was wrestling with his call to ministry, and his dad said, "You're not in our you're not a preacher because you're in our family. God put you in our family because he was going to call you to be a preacher." And that generational calling really is a real thing. Run from it, hide from it. And that doesn't mean that if you're a PK that you have to be in ministry, but the discipleship that you're receiving, the apprenticeship, the experience, man, the likelihood of you stepping into that with maturity and wisdom beyond your years is so high. Why run from it if God's given you this leg up to step into it? Absolutely amazing.
And I want to be sensitive because I know that not every pastor's kid has the parents that I have. I really have phenomenal parents that have made it really easy and had language and really live lives that I want to replicate. And so I know that there's some PKs out there that may not see the same parent. I've talked with those PKs. And so, but I think that I would also say that there's probably people that you've been exposed to that are great examples of what it should look like. And so, but I know that it's hard for the pastors, and so having grace for your parents as well is key. So, it's very unique. It's a unique situation. I just love it. I've had an incredible experience.
Before Eli closes us out by asking you to be our tour guide to Austin and our sole authority on which teams we should root for and which teams we should stay away from, the thing you just said was powerful. It challenged me as a parent of a PK. She's only 2, but you said they lived lives you actually wanted to reflect, that they had language that helped you walk as a PK and now in ministry, but in whatever God would have called you to be. For our parents that listen to every episode to make sure that we're not brainwashing or indoctrinating their kids, thank you for listening and thank you for your DMs. Could you talk about that for a second? What was the language or, top 3 answers on the board, things that the champions did that made you go, yeah, I don't always like what my parents are doing, but I want to be that?
Yeah, I think it's, they didn't live and they were always the best parents to have at games because they were always connecting with people, but they just lived different lives. I mean, really, I look at them and I think that they could be successful in anything that they did. But I think that the best thing that they did was they had a constant dialogue of Bible. It wasn't like, hey, every Monday we're going to sit down, and that may be something for some family, but we're going to do family Bible study together every Monday. That was never really our culture as a family. It was just everything was, hey, you see this happening over here at the table next to us? That's not us. And, or you look at somebody who is a great leader and you say, hey, that could be you. And so just constantly dialoguing while creating fun moments was key for us. And I think that it was just a real world environment. I really think I have a theory about this, and I really haven't even talked about it, so it may come across the wrong way, but I think for us, my dad grew up in a very non-spiritual home, but he would say that his parents and his family are super principled. His brothers one went to the Naval Academy, played football, and was a colonel, and then fighter pilot, and the other uncle was 2-star general, led Afghanistan, has more combat experience than anybody in the National Guard's history. So he has this strong lineage of leaders that were not saved, but they were just really principled. They would never cheat on their wife. And I really think that some things we over spiritualize, and we just are, man, if I cheat on my wife, that's the devil. I think that they have built a tank of really great principles that isn't all over spiritualized. Obviously, it's all out of the Bible. God has given that to us, He's written it on our hearts, as the Bible would say. But I think that even if we weren't saved, I think that we would be great people, and in a very world, you know what I mean by when I say that. But
Yeah.
it's I think that it's so extreme. It's like, well, if I am a pastor, I have to be like this. But if I'm not a pastor, I'm just going to go buck wild and go crazy all the time. So I just think that they instilled that in us. Like, hey, this is what leaders do. This is how we act. This is how we conduct ourselves. And then really the Holy Spirit should be the thing that is a propeller in life. But that's not why we do it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Well, I kind of relate to that because my upbringing is probably very similar to yours. Before my dad was planning a church, he was a businessman, and he was an entrepreneur. Did it. He was in the oil industry. He was kind of a bigwig there for a little bit, and that's what his granddad did. His brother did. They all kind of came from that business, entrepreneurial, finance kind of like world. And so he's the first person in his family to be a pastor. But his dad though also led with the strongest convictions. They were in church. 20 minutes before service every week. They were leading Sunday school. It didn't matter if he was flying across the country doing business deals. They were always coming back in church on Sunday. And so I can relate to that for sure from that perspective of just like they were just rooted in so much of truth and so much in the church. And so for our listener today who's listening and you're going, man, like I get it, like awesome that they work for churches and stuff, but maybe that's not me. Well, here's how you can lead your family in that way and leading a godly life. It's just being someone who has principle, being someone who has it. So you may be listening today and you may not be a pastor, but you're going, okay, I want to be able to relate this and bring this into my family one day. And, I want to be able to make sure that we're rooted in the things of God as well. And, if you're in high school or middle school, a great place to start, go to their college and do it. But if not, like, just know that you can live a life of huge purpose, just like his family was. And so, so I'm excited for that. And I'm excited to see where God has you as well. I just know that you're also going to be successful in everything you do because you're a brilliant mind and you've got so much going for you. But speaking of brilliant minds, I think that for me, I have found that my favorite place right now to visit is Austin, Texas. And it's incredible that you're there. But I want to hear from your brain, kind of your thing. As the tour guide there, the best barbecue in the city of Austin, for me, it was Terry Black's. I went there and it was awesome. I went there the night before Texas and Alabama game. Game day was there. And, I saw like some of the producers were there eating. I was just like, I've seen you on ESPN before, but what do I say anything or not? And I was like, this is amazing. And but it was my favorite place to go there in Austin. And so God, give us, where's your favorite places to hang out? And maybe it's places where you're not seeing your church people. You said everywhere you go, you can find church people.
Yeah.
Where are they hanging out?
Yeah, I think, barbecue wise, there's a place called Interstellar that I haven't been yet, but I've heard it's incredible. It's either number 1 or number 2 now in the state of Texas. I think it's number 1 in Texas. So it's a newer restaurant. It's a little bit northwest, closer to us, Austin. So I got to try that. I'll get back to you on it. Terry Black's is phenomenal. Cooper's is phenomenal. I did that as well. Cooper's, yep. Yeah, the big thing in Texas is the beef rib. Like the brisket is great. You got to have brisket, but the really good stuff is a great beef rib. It'll cost you about $40, but it's worth it. So yeah, those are really good. I think some other there's so many great restaurants in Austin, like Neighborhood Sushi. If you're a sushi person, is great. Uchi's great. There's a place called Red Ash that I was just at last week. It's Italian, but they have these incredible steaks. Joe Rogan just posted about a place called Jay Carver's. That's great. But, I mean, we see people all over. I mean, it's just a foodie city. Like, it's a foodie. You could never have all of the restaurants that are here.
Yep.
So it just depends on what you like.
So as fellow podcasters here, has Joe Rogan come to church yet? Have you led him to the Lord yet?
Joe Rogan, we're working on Joe. But I would love, I think that there's a few people that come to mind that I think would be great on this podcast. I think, I obviously think my dad would be great on the podcast. I think Nathan Finocchio would be really great on the podcast. So we'll work on it. We've tried, actually, we've kind of worked on some things, but we'll see. Maybe one day.
That's amazing.
We're definitely going to have Nathan on after PK vacay is over. Right now, he's helping a bunch of fat preachers' kids get in shape and recover.
Yes.
And so we're praying for him as that's going on this week.
Yes.
God
bless him and his ministry.
That's a great ministry to have.
So this, John, you may have an idea of what you probably don't though. So as me and you have texted before, Kyle, just that we're college football junkies. Who's winning? Who's in the top 4 this year? And who's the TCU of this year?
I think the TCU of this year. I hate to say it.
And why is it going to be UNC? It's going to be UNC. It's okay to go ahead and admit Carolina will be it. But other than them,
I mean, it's really. I struggle saying this because I'm not a huge fan of them since the Mac Brown era at Texas, but I think that Texas could be back this year, and it pains me to say that because
you're in Austin.
I've lived with them.
You live in their college town.
Exactly. I put up with a lot of T-shirt Texas fans, and I'm still in a group chat with a lot of them now. And they just every year think that Texas is back. But I think that they'll have a great season before going into the SEC. And just look at their schedule. It's pretty bad. And they have a lot of depth coming back. So I think Texas is the TCU of this year. I think LSU wins the West. Georgia ultimately gets in. So I would say Georgia, Texas.
Where do we have USC?
Ohio
if they're going to run it?
Ohio State could be. USC is going to be. I think USC could get into the playoff. It's really a matter of schedule. I mean, you have Texas and USC don't play anybody. So I think
not until next year. Texas has a hard one.
Yeah. So I think Texas. If this is going on the record, I would just say Texas, USC, Georgia, LSU, just because I'm a homer.
Wow. Interesting. What a momentum for Texas going into the SEC in a couple of years. My granddad played football at Oklahoma. He won national championship at Oklahoma. I cannot cheer for anything to do with Texas. So it breaks my heart to hear that. So all the pastors' kids right now, y'all are blessed by that. We need to have Connor. I think we should do a spinoff podcast one day of our college football game day, the diet version of it, where we just talk college football for hours.
Let's do it. It sounds great. We should do it.
Y'all have a great time.
Venues. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes. If he wasn't for all the cussing that he does, I would be Pat McAfee. Without the lifestyle.
Awesome. I love Pat McAfee.
So, and if you guys don't know him, you don't find him. It's okay.
Yeah.
Or do, I don't know. But we can lead him to the Lord.
Bro, just tell him to keep it King James. That only really eliminates like one word from your vocabulary, and you're good at that point.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Let's go.
Connor, thank you for hanging out with us this afternoon or this morning, and I just think it's awesome. Whenever I met you last year, I was like, this is someone who reflects a life that I admire, and just seeing what you're doing with bringing a new university to the table. And I think this is going to be incredible for just the future students and future people who are going into the world and can truly make a difference with their resource and with their knowledge and education. So thank you so much for that. And
Thank you all so much for having me.
Absolutely.
Thank you all for joining us for this episode, season 3 of the PK podcast, with some incredible guests on the way. In fact, Connor mentioned a couple of them today. We're definitely going to have his dad on the show. Looking forward to having the Finocchios and any guests that you suggest to us in the DMs. We want to connect with you. On the record, the sports prophecies were professional, not actually prophetic, so you can't stone him if they don't come true. But check out the show notes just below this episode. Just swipe up and follow Connor on Instagram. Check out the Austin Christian University. In his words, that's what leaders do. If you want to be a leader in the business space or in the church space or in both, we cannot recommend Austin Christian U to PKs everywhere enough. Check out their website. Go ahead and fill out an application form and be part of the first 1,500 that change the world through this incredible university. We will see you again in 2 weeks.